Hello, denizens of the internet. It is my pleasure to present to you TV Guide's 1986 Fall Preview issue video. As we always do, let's start with the most significant news stories from 1986, according to me. Aruba gains autonomy from the Netherlands. The Gateway Bridge in Brisbane, Australia, the longest concrete-free cantilever bridge, is opened. Voyager 2 space probe makes its first encounter with Uranus. Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Pixar is founded by John Lasseter with Steve Jobs. Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme is shot dead on his way home from the cinema. Microsoft holds its initial public offering of stock shares. Out of Africa wins Best Picture Oscar. Pope John Paul II officially visits the Great Synagogue of Rome. It's been there for 82 years and he just noticed it. Chernobyl, nuclear plant meltdown. Expo 86 opens in Vancouver, British Columbia. Paramount Pictures releases Top Gun. Hands across America, at least 5 million people form a human chain from New York City to Long Beach, California. FIFA World Cup. Argentinian player Diego Maradona scores a handball goal nicknamed the Hand of God. Prince Andrew marries Sarah Ferguson. Pan Am Flight 73 is hijacked at Karachi Airport by 4 Abu Nindal terrorists. Fox Broadcasting Company is launched. New York Mets win the World Series. The first commercial 3D printer is sold. And finally, Opus Pro, a Latvian hard rock group, is formed. Now, let's get on with TV Guide's Fall Preview 1986.
Perfect Strangers, ABC. Bulky Bartikomus, a sheep herder from the small Mediterranean Greek-like island of Mypos, travels to the United States in search of his relatives. He finds his cousin Larry Appleton. They end up sharing accommodation in Larry's apartment, even though the two cousins could not be more dissimilar. Starring Bronson Pinchot, Mark Lynn Baker, and Melanie Wilson. Lasted 7 1/4 seasons.
Sample episode. Bulky wants to obtain his membership card to the American Dream, a driver's license. And Twinkassetti bets Larry $50 that he won't get it. So Larry offers to teach Bulky to drive, but is hesitant to actually hand over the keys to his car. This was very much like a male version of Laverne and Shirley. Silly fun with lots of physical gags.
1986, NBC. This was the 15th time NBC tried to set up a competitor to CBS's 60 Minutes. It starred Roger Rudd and Connie Chung. Maybe the 16th try will be lucky. Valerie, NBC. Valerie Hogan is what you call a supermom. Valerie's husband Michael is an airline pilot, so the job of raising their 3 boys is left mostly to Valerie. There's girl-hungry David, trouble-attracting Willie, and brainy Mark. Each week, Valerie encounters different experiences of what being a boy mom is like. Starring Valerie Harper, Jason Bateman, Jeremy Licht, Dan Ponce, Josh Taylor, Eddie McClurg, and Sandy Duncan. Lasted 6 seasons.
Sample episode. After taking over as coach of the twins soccer team, Valerie has to teach Willie some hard lessons in commitment and teamwork. David takes over the cooking and cleaning for 2 weeks in exchange for a new car stereo. If you don't recognize the name of the show, that's because it became Valerie's family, the Hogans, before settling on just the Hogan family. The series started on NBC and finished its run on CBS. After the first 2 seasons, Valerie Harper was fired. Her character was killed off at the start of season 3, and Sandy Duncan joined the cast as Valerie's sister-in-law and the boy's aunt. Why was Harper fired? Harper demanded a per-episode salary increase and a larger cut of future syndication revenue. NBC refused, and Harper walked. Apparently, Valerie pulled this stunt on the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Rhoda. As Robert Myers Burnett likes to say, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate.
You again, NBC. Henry Willows has been divorced for 10 years when his son Matt suddenly moves in. Matt is an irresponsible 17-year-old and sparks fly between conservative Henry and his son. Enid is Harry's housekeeper, starring Jack Klugman, John Stamos, and Elizabeth Bennet. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. Henry decides to try to get Matt enrolled in the same tough school he attended as a youth, based on the UK sitcom Home to Roost.
The Disney Sunday Movie, ABC, back when Disney didn't hate their old stuff. Life with Lucy, ABC. Lucy Barker is a grandmother who constantly gets into comedic predicaments while living with her daughter's family, starring Lucille Ball, Gail Gordon, Ann Dusenberry, Larry Anderson, and Jenny Lewis. Only 8 out of the 13 episodes produced were aired.
Sample episode. Becky signs up Lucy for her school's Grandma Talent Contest. Unfortunately, Lucy doesn't sing, dance, tell jokes, or do magic, so she decides to do a dramatic recitation so as not to disappoint her grandchildren. I remember seeing this, and even though Lucy was an old bird, her interaction with pal Gail Gordon was fun. Apparently, the cancellation of the show devastated her, and she died in 1989, although I don't think because of the show.
Downtown, CBS. LAPD Officer Forney serves double duty supervising 4 wildly differing parolees living in a halfway house. He tries to get them jobs. They try to help him solve crimes. Starring Michael Nouri, Mariska Hargitay, Blair Underwood, Robert Englund. Lasted half a season.
Sample episode. Harriet has romantic feelings for a man who is suspected of selling government secrets. Great cast. Didn't catch on.
The Ellen Burstyn Show, ABC. Ellen Brewer, a best-selling author, shares her Baltimore house with single daughter Molly Ross, plus 5-year-old grandson Nick. Added to the mix is Ellen's sarcastic mother, Sydney, and her seminary student Tom, a frequent guest. Starring Ellen Burstyn, Megan Mullally, Jesse Tender, Barry Sobel, and Elaine Stritch. Lasted half a season. They actually shot 13, but only aired 8. ABC was really working the cancel stick in 1986. Heart of the City, ABC. Wes Kennedy is a cop who works long hours at night in order to spend the daytime with his 2 teenage kids, Robin and Kevin. Starring Robert Desiderio, Jonathan Ward, Christina Applegate, Mario Salem, Branscombe Richmond, and Dick Anthony Williams. Lasted half a season.
The series debuted on ABC's Saturday night schedule following 2 comedies, The Ellen Burstyn Show and Life with Lucy, which were terrible lead-ins. It was the 2nd lowest rated show that season, airing against NBC's The Golden Girls and Amen, and also losing out to CBS's The New Mike Hammer. Heart of the City ranked 82nd out of 83 shows with a 7.2 rating and a 12 share. I'm pointing this out now because present day, if a show had a 3 rating, it would be a hit. Trivia. 3 ABC stations would not air one episode that dealt with Wes discussing contraceptives with his 16-year-old son. Horror.
Amen. NBC. The new head of Philadelphia's First Community Church, Reverend Reuben Gregory, finds dealing with the headstrong, opinionated, and unethical deacon Ernest Fry, who works as a lawyer when not tending to church business, won't make his job easy. Starring Sherman Hemsley, Clifton Davis, Anna Maria Horsford, Roz Ryan, and Jester Hairston. Lasted 5 seasons.
Sample episode. Raleigh asks the deacon to ask out a waitress for him, and the deacon decides to ask her out himself. Of course. Amen was the brainchild of Ed Weinberger, better known for writing The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Taxi. It was produced by Carson Productions. Yes, Johnny had a production company. Amen had a stellar cast, but of course the driving force was Sherman Hemsley. It was a funny show and not afraid to deal with racial issues.
Our House, NBC. Following the death of his son, Gus Witherspoon takes in his daughter-in-law and his 3 grandchildren to live with him. Adjustment to the new arrangement is not easy on any of them. Starring Wilford Brimley, Deidre Hall, Shannon Doherty, Chad Allen, Carrie Houlihan, and Gerald O'Loughlin. Lasted 2 seasons.
Sample episode. Jessie starts dating again when an attractive client asks her out, but the kids have some concerns. Gus's poker night is a disaster. A weak show that would not have survived without the strength of Brimley's acting.
Easy Street, NBC. An elderly hillbilly and his friend are rescued from a life of poverty by a long-lost family member who married into wealth in Beverly Hills, but is now doing social battle with her late husband's snobby family. Starring Lonnie Anderson, Jack Elam, Lee Weaver, Dana Ivey, James Cromwell, and Arthur Mallet. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. LK sends Bully and Ricardo out to buy a stallion, and they return with a broken-down racehorse. Who would have figured that out? Obviously, the show was inspired by the Beverly Hillbillies. LK was Lonnie Anderson's character. I can't recall the number of shows the networks tried to enlist Jack Elam, but none ever stuck.
Alf, NBC. The Tanner family is an average American family. One day, they discover that they have a visitor. He's small, he's furry, he's arrogant, and he's an alien from the planet Melmac. Unsure what to do, they name him Alf, alien life form. The Tanners decide to keep Alf as long as he doesn't announce his presence and stays away from their cat. Starring Paul Fusco as Alf, Max Wright, Ann Skadine, Andrea Elson, and Benji Gregory. Lasted 4 unbelievable seasons.
Sample episode. The Tanners decide to spend Christmas in a cabin in the woods, but Alf soon gets lost. You won't believe it, but I never watched Alf. Okay, maybe once, but I had a fever at the time. Let the hate mail come! An interesting fact. You can't buy a complete set of Alf in the U.S. because of music copyright issues. The show is popular in Europe because the complete shows can be played without issue. Also, Hungarian circus performer Mihaly Meseres performed as Alf in the first 11 episodes.
My Sister Sam, CBS. Comedy about a San Francisco photographer whose teenager sister comes to live with her from Oregon. Starring Pam Dauber, Jenny O'Hara, Joel Brooks, David Naughton, and Rebecca Schaefer. Lasted 2 seasons.
Sample episode. When Jack gets arrested for protesting to keep a sports field open, Sam is left to do his errands. Meanwhile, Patty goes to a Sting concert with a friend. My Sister Sam is a perfect example of why producers had a hate-hate relationship with the networks. First of all, Diane English of Murphy Brown fame was the exec producer. My Sister Sam premiered on October 6, 1986, scheduled between Kate and Allie and Newhart. Both hit shows for CBS. The series earned a solid rating and was ranked number 21 by the end of its first season. Due to its success, CBS renewed the series for a second season, but then moved it to Saturday nights opposite The Facts of Life, which was part of NBC's very successful Saturday night comedy lineup. By the end of October 1987, the audience had dwindled to one of the lowest on network TV ranking at number 71. How would you like to be Dauber, the cast, the producers? Learning your show is being moved from its golden slot. Welcome to network TV, folks.
Designing Women, CBS. Outspoken feminist Julia Sugarbaker runs a design firm out of her Atlanta home, along with her shallow ex-beauty queen sister Suzanne, divorced mother Mary Jo, and naive country girl Charlene. Black ex-con Anthony helps deliver furniture for the business and voices his unique opinion on whatever the women are discussing. Starring Delta Burke, Dixie Carter, Annie Potts, Massage Taylor, and Jean Smart. Lasted 7 seasons.
Sample episode. The ladies plan a funeral for a fellow designer who is dying of AIDS. First of all, I want to say that this was a very funny show with great characters that was well written, but also very left-leaning, which my episode sample indicates. Writer and producer Linda Bloodworth Thomason was a hardcore Democrat with ties to the Clintons. Dixie Carter, who was a Republican, put up with the show as best she could. As much of a success as we remember it to be, it started slowly and was even placed on hiatus, but a write-in campaign saved it. CBS put it back on Mondays and it became a solid top 20 show. And that is why producers put vodka in their maylocks.
The Wizard, CBS. Although only 4 feet tall, Simon McKay is a genius who has developed toys, devices for the handicapped, and secret inventions for the government. To protect him, the government assigned Alex Jaeger to protect him from being kidnapped by a foreign power. The pair travel all over the globe during their adventures, starring David Rappaport, Douglas Barr, and Fran Ryan. Lasted almost a season.
Sample episode. Simon is contacted by an old friend for help whom he met while traveling. But when he and Alex begin to look into what's going on, he finds himself crossing paths with an old nemesis. Fans of Time Bandit will remember David Rappaport. The show was canceled just short of a full season. The stars of the show campaigned to let them finish the story. CBS said no. Heartless bastards.
Matlock, NBC. Ben Matlock is a very expensive criminal defense attorney who charges $100,000 to take a case. Fortunately, he's worth every penny, as he and his associates defend his clients by finding the real killer. Starring Andy Griffith, Keen Holiday, and Nancy Stafford. Lasted 9 years.
Sample episode. Wealthy philanthropist Malcolm Engel reveals his plan to murder someone close to Ben Matlock at a certain time and place and challenges Matlock to, try and prove he did it. The show felt like the dude version of Murder, She Wrote. Don Knotts, who co-starred with Griffith on The Andy Griffith Show, began making frequent appearances as Les Ace Calhoun. Who didn't like Don Knotts?
Crime Story, NBC. In 1963 Chicago, Lieutenant Michael Torello, as head of the police department's major crime unit, must deal with the city's most dangerous criminals, and possibly the most dangerous of all is Ray Luca, an ambitious young straight hood who's out to gain power and wealth by any means, including theft, threats, extortion, and murder. Starring Dennis Farina, Michael Smitrovich, Tony Dennison, Steve Ryan, Billy Campbell, and Paul Butler. Lasted 2 seasons.
Sample episode. I have to read this very seriously. Paulie's girlfriend, who's a hooker, ends up being the latest casualty in a violent war between competing brothels. I love this show, mainly because of Dennis Farina's tough guy performance. Produced by Michael Mann, he envisioned each season to be a novel that would take 24 shows to complete. Very clever, great show, but the show proved too expensive and was canceled.
Jack and Mike, ABC. The stories revolve around Jackie, a newspaper columnist for a Chicago newspaper, and Mike, a restaurant owner. Their fast-paced life and their careers often interfere in their plans. Starring Shelley Hack and Tom Mason. Lasted 16 episodes. Next. Together We Stand, CBS. A couple adopts a daughter, then conceives their son. When the social worker appears, they think she wants to take back the daughter, but she tells them about other children who need them to be their adoptive parents. Starring Dee Wallace, Ki Hui Kwan, Scott Grimes, Katie O'Neill, Natasha Bobo, and Elliot Gould.
Sample episode. Lori worries that she's too white bread to be a proper mother to her two newest kids. Jack and Sam try to watch an R-rated video cassette. Remember those? Sounds like a show they do today. Together We Stand actually lasted only 6 shows before it was retooled without Elliot Gould, who apparently was killed in a car accident, and it was renamed Nothing Is Easy, and clearly it wasn't because it only lasted 13 more episodes.
Head of the Class, ABC. Charlie Moore is a struggling New York City actor and director who works as a substitute teacher while awaiting his big break. His current assignment is to watch over a class of student prodigies. Principal Dr. Harold Samuels has more or less shut them out from the rest of the world, so Charlie tries to show them that there is more to life than just studying and winning academic competitions. Starring Howard Hessman, William Schilling, Jeanette Arnett, Dan Fishman, Robin Givens, Christine Hodge, whose name I'm certain I didn't pronounce correctly, Tony Odell, Brian Robbins, Kimberly Russell, Dan Schneider, and Billy Connolly. Lasted 5 seasons.
Sample episode. When they're asked to contribute something for the 80s time capsule the school is burying, the students secretly come up with something special. Their own music video for the song The Future's So Bright I Gotta Wear Shades by Timbuk 3. Head of the class was essentially Welcome Back Kotter mixed with Big Bang Theory. It was a fine show. Hessman played it straight, but his replacement, Billy Connolly, played it for laughs, and I actually like the Billy Connolly version better.
Better Days, CBS. Brian McGuire is a California teenager who loves life in Los Angeles until something happens to his family, and he must move to his uncle's place in Brooklyn. Starring Raphael Sbarge, Chip McAllister, Guy Killam, Randall Batinkoff, Randy Heller, and Dick O'Neill. 11 shows were made, only 4 were broadcast. People magazine said it was a shockingly racist sitcom. Next. Kay O'Brien, CBS. Kay O'Brien is a resident surgeon at the fictitious Manhattan General, where she struggles to balance her professional and personal life. Ex-boyfriend Sam is still in the picture, and she leans on Nurse Rosa, her best friend. Starring Patricia Calumber, Brian Benben, Patricia Lopez, Jan Rubish, Lane Smith, and Tony Soper. CBS had high hopes for this multiracial medical drama, but it received low ratings and was canceled after airing just 8 episodes. 12 were shot. Sidekicks, ABC. Sergeant Jake Rizzo is chosen by Sebastian as tutor of his grandson Ernie Lee and the last heir of an antique clan of special martial artists. Patricia Blake is an officer from the Department of Protection for Minors who must verify Jake is a good tutor for Ernie, starring Gil Gerard, Nancy Stafford, Key Luke, and Ernie Reyes Jr., lasted 1 season. Sidekicks was a martial arts spin-off of the Walt Disney special, The Last Electric Night. Sledge Hammer, ABC. Inspector Sledge Hammer is stubborn, sexist, and reactionary, but also a serious and respectful detective from the San Francisco Police Department. Hammer's most prized possession is his Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum. Hammer sleeps and showers with his gun. He believes in shooting first and asking questions never. Starring David Rasch, Anne-Marie Martin, and Harrison Page.
Sample episode. A bevy of bikini-clad terrorettes steal a nuclear warhead and threaten to blow up the city unless their billion-dollar demand is met. Sledge and Dory trace the suspects to a health spa operated by aerobics video magnate Jill Taylor. Alan Spender originally wrote the pilot script in 1976 as a parody of Dirty Harry, but every network rejected it because they thought it was too insanely violent until Sudden Impact came out in the 80s, and then it suddenly seemed less violent. Hilarious and inspired insanity that should never have been canceled. Rasch was perfectly cast as Sledge.
Starman, ABC. An alien returns to Earth years after an earlier visit to reunite with his Earth son, and together they search for the alien's human wife. Starring Robert Hayes, Christopher Daniel Barnes, and Michael Cavanaugh. Lasted just one season.
Sample episode. Paul recognizes his home star in a painting. He seeks out and finds the artist who painted it. I was hot for this show. After all, it starred Airplane's Robert Hayes, and it was sci-fi. It was based on the John Carpenter movie starring Jeff Bridges. Loved the movie, loved the show. TV networks always had a hate relationship with sci-fi.
L.A. Law, NBC. Drama depicting life in a large Los Angeles law firm. Character-based stories dealing with the personal lives and professional activities of the partners, associates, and staff. Starring a huge cast which included Corbin Bernsen, Jill Eikenberry, Alan Rashines, Michael Tucker, Richard Dysart, Susan Rutan, Blair Underwood, Susan Day, Jimmy Smits, and Harry Hamlin. Lasted 8 seasons.
Sample episode. Foster Troutman, a charming polygamist, causes an uproar at the firm over Becker and Markowitz's tax audit case of him and his 11 wives, and he offers Markowitz a new sexual maneuver on pleasing a woman, while Becker is attracted to his lawyer, Lynette Pierce. This episode was called The Venus Butterfly and was as talked about as much in its time as Seinfeld's Master of Your Domain episode. Created by Stephen Bochco of Hill Street Blues fame and Terry Louise Fisher of Cagney and Lacey fame, it was a powerhouse of a show. Netflix needs to stop rerunning Suits and start rerunning LA Law instead. It was a much better show. It was an extraordinary ensemble production with multiple storylines and a great cast. If there was such a thing as a perfect show, I think LA Law was it. That's it for the new shows of 1986. There were some big hits in there for sure. Even many of the misses were not horrible. Overall, a fine year for TV. What do you think? Any of your favorite shows in there? Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.